Welcome to MTM Travel. Mark, I'm excited. There's a lot to discuss today. Alaska made a ton of changes, but Disney is putting a roller coaster on a cruise ship. There's no bigger news than that.
Lots of bigger news. Isn't there roller coasters on tons of cruise ships? I don't feel like this is anything new.
Hey, there's some on Carnival cruise ships. We'll talk about that because Disney released renderings of their Adventure and stuff like that, which is one of the largest cruise ships in the world. They got this out of bankruptcy from Genting. So it's an interesting sort of thing with that. But it is the most complete amusement park, I would say, at sea. So I think it's worth discussing. And Alaska, tons of changes to their mileage plan that we should probably discuss, and a lot of other stuff to go along the way. But you were just in Massachusetts, and we'll talk about that too. But how was your trip? Was it fun?
Yeah, I mean, we went to Salem. Was the main goal of the trip, for Halloween. My daughter's favorite movie is Hocus Pocus, and a lot of the movie takes place there. So you can see some of the spots, like the park and the houses and in various places around Salem. Plus, the history of Salem's really unique and something different and kind of spooky and all of that stuff. So had spent a little bit of time there with my son when we did the New Haven pizza trip a year or two ago. And, we met up with some friends in Salem, walked around, spent a few hours, really loved it. So I wanted to take my wife and daughter back. My wife's a big Halloween person too. So that was kind of like the goal of the trip, spent a couple nights there. And then we ended up going up the coast a bit more because Salem's kind of worn out after one night, I would say.
Yeah, it's interesting how much history there is in that whole area. Boston, obviously the Tea Party, and you have the whole Freedom Trail and all of that stuff. And then you go up north. We talked on the 20-minute travel channel about Hammond Castle, which I had never heard of, which is this medieval style castle in Gloucester, or somebody put it in the comments on how to say it. I know it's not that. Closter. That's it, like claw. That's what
Yeah.
they said. So yeah, people can check that out. But there's so much cool around there. But I could see Salem. I was there just for a day 15 years ago, but I could see it sort of not being a place to spend a week. I mean, a day probably good.
Yeah, and I mean, if you go in October, it's going to be crazy. There's people everywhere, but you also get more of the vibes and everything like that. I personally preferred Salem not in October. Like, I think you still got a lot of the history. There's the museums there, the Essex Museum, and then there's the Witch Museum, and they have the monster thing you can go through that's kind of cool, and that's open year round. So you can still, in the Pirate Museum, so you still have these like things that you can do, and there's the stores are all open year round, which are very Halloween themed, masks and all these trinkets and stuff, and you can still do the walking tours where they talk about the witch trials and everything like that. But if you go at this time of year, it's just like crazy. We got there Thursday night. We stayed at the Hampton Inn right downtown. It was like 70,000 Hilton points a night. Kind of expensive, but you can't really beat the location. And it's an expensive weekend. I think it was going for close to $700 when I booked it. So definitely some value for the points there. We walked around. We got there Thursday night. It wasn't overly busy. It was busy, but it wasn't like wall-to-wall people. So that was a bit nicer. They still had people out selling like mead and other things, or selling beef jerky, like a normal flea market type of thing. Like, they just have these tents set up. And then the cool thing that you get now that you might not get other times of the year is there's people dressed up all over the place. And then like people sitting there, full out costumes. Like, there was two young girls that looked like the twins from The Shining, and they were sitting there, and you could give them $1 to take a picture with them. So that was creepy. And Michael Myers, guy
A
dressed up
dollar.
like
That's
that.
so cheap. That's so
Yeah.
cheap. That
Well, it was like
Vegas price
tip,
is like
it was like tips, whatever tips you want to give. They just held a basket. I don't think they can tell you a price. It's kind of like the Vegas, where the showgirls go around and they suggest something, but they just had a tip jar up there. People were taking pictures with them. And there was a guy like sitting down an alley. When you walk by, he would jump out at you. They had some of the haunted house type setup things that they might not have year round, which were a big ripoff. my my wife and son did it. It was like $28 for the two of them, and they were done in like a minute and a half, maybe less. It was so bad.
there's nothing worse than getting ripped off by those like little tourist attractions that
Yeah.
you want to do, especially with the kids when they want to do it, and then it's not going to be good, and it doesn't turn out good. I have a question. What does mead taste like?
I mean, it's kind of like a beer. I mean, it all depends. Like, you can get different kinds of it. We ended up buying a jar of it. It was like $22. It has 15% alcohol, but it didn't seem like it was all that strong. I don't know. It's weird. So maybe that was it was kind of fake. Maybe we got ripped off twice. I don't know. But it tastes a little bit like beer and alcohol mixed together. I guess that's the easiest way to say it. But there's some mead beers I've had that taste just like beer, and then there's other mead that tastes more like liquor. So it can be all over the place. It's just a little bit stronger and doesn't bite as much as hard liquor does.
That's hilarious. You probably got sold an alcohol-free mead just to mess with you. They're like, this doesn't taste good. Yeah, I remember Salem just being really cool, and the Salem Witch Museum, I really enjoyed it. Again, I was there in 2007, so it was a long time ago. But even back then, they had like mini animatronics in the museum that told the story of the witches and the witch trials and all of that. And I don't know. I grew up here on the West Coast, so on the West Coast we don't have maybe the history, and so you study all this stuff and you learn about things like the Salem witch trials, or even like things like Jamestown or the colonial areas and all of that. And then when you go to the East Coast for the first time, you see all of this stuff. And I know for me it was so incredible, and Salem stands out for that reason because I don't know, remember in middle school or something, wasn't there a book that everybody had to read about the witch trials? So
I'm sure, yeah.
it's like so much in your memory.
Yeah, and my son, he's in seventh grade, and he really wanted to get into like the nitty gritty of it because he hasn't really gotten into it at school yet, or maybe they just started, but he really wanted to get the history of it. And the first time we went, we walked around where the graves were and the memorial and everything like that. And then you see the night tours. Like Thursday night didn't seem too bad, but on Friday night, there was just like lines of people, like one walking tour after another, and it was so jammed up that I don't even think it would be a worthwhile experience if you had paid for it. And I think they give a lot of good info and everything. They have lanterns, and it's a cool setup. I just think you could do that in September or November or even, May or June or whatever. Like do it a different time of year. If I was coming off season, I'd stay a couple nights. They have great restaurants there, a good bar scene. I mean, there's pub crawls and everything going on in October, which is probably fun too. But I just felt like it was a more relaxed vibe versus October. I would do like one night just to get like all the feels of Halloween and stuff. But like you said, the Witch Museum gets kind of mixed reviews. The Monster, I forget what it's called, like Monster Emporium or something like that. It's inside the mall there, and that gets a little bit better reviews. I think it's only like a year or two old, but that one's probably a little bit more worth your money. It's like wax figures, and a guy that works for movies and does all these set designs and stuff set it up, and it takes monsters from the movies and recreates them and sets them up within the thing. So that's something that I think we would go back and do. And then I heard great things about the Pirate Museum, which is nothing to do with Halloween, but that's right up near the river and everything. So there's definitely, like, we had great food when we were there both times. So I think it's more like a little foodie and history type place, but it gets a little crazy in October.
And it's only what, a 30-minute drive from Boston, so you could still
Yeah.
do all the Boston stuff at the same time.
Yeah, we ended up trying to go back to Boston on Saturday before we flew out in the evening, but there was a Bruins game going on downtown, so it was just chaos and no parking anywhere, and everything was full. But on the way out, we stopped at Monty's in Lynn, which is, if you watch One Bite Pizza, it's his only 10 ever given out in a review, which I was kind of surprised when I saw the pizza. It didn't look that great, and then when we ate there, it wasn't outstanding. So I don't know why it got a 10. Even if you look at the app, like he gave it a 10, and everybody else gives it like a 7.5. I mean, it's thin crust, it's solid. It just doesn't have a lot of flavor. There's nothing super special about it. The service was amazing. It was dirt cheap though. We got two pizzas and like a egg roll, but a buffalo chicken egg roll type thing, appetizer, and just like sodas for the table. And it was like $32 plus tip. So it was kind of crazy, like very local, hole in the wall type place, which was kind of cool. And then we ate at a place called Witch City Hibachi, I think, in Salem, which was really really good and kind of cool inside. And we also went to a place called Bit Bar that was like 80s arcade machines, and they were all one token for the most part, a couple two tokens. We went, giving the kids a couple, $5 each in tokens, and they played for like an hour while we just sat and hung out. And the food was okay. It was like any bar fare, but definitely a unique place that was kind of cool.
Sounds like a perfect family weekend trip. And, hibachi is funny because it was like, remember like the 80s when we're growing up, it was like the hot sort of in
Yeah.
thing. And then, now we're so overwhelmed with sensory overload everywhere. But hibachi still kind of holds strong, and people still like the show. First off, the food is good, right? I mean, tastes
Yeah.
really good, but you get the show. But kids love that. And incorporating that into travel. There's a lot of them on cruise ships. There's at theme parks, but just, anywhere you go, it can be like a meal and a show for the kids. And I've just noticed over the years how much kids enjoy hibachi. And I love the food. So good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. And the trip before we ate at a place called Bambolino, which is like on the outskirts of town. I believe that's how you say it. Really good Italian pizza type place. And but then like so Thursday night we're there. We're kind of like we saw everything and we're like, all right, well, what are we gonna do tomorrow? Because we, we already did a lot of what we wanted to do. I still wanted to walk through. We came back and walked through everything on Friday night just to get a feel for what the crowds were like and everything. But it was very similar. More adult leaning than I would have expected. I thought it would be more like a mixture of families and adult, but a very heavy like adult pub crawl bar type vibe to it. So maybe it's a different experience if you're going with friends than what we had. But we decided to drive north a bit and go along the coast, like Manchester by the Sea, and then what Gloucester, is that how you say it? Went up there. I had read about Hammond Castle, never heard of it before that, but it was like sitting there, like things to do in the area. But even like the park just past there, south of Gloucester, is like beautiful, amazing views of the water, just kind of unique and something you don't really get anywhere else. Like West Coast, yes, has beautiful beaches and everything, but I feel like East Coast just has like that history, older buildings, and then also beach stuff. So kind of different.
So let's pivot to Alaska for a minute because we might talk about this on 20-minute travel or not, but I feel like this is enough change that it warrants a longer discussion about everything that's happening because Alaska announced a number of details. The first thing I think that people were probably worried about, no devaluation coming to their awards, and that's because the government said they couldn't. So
Yeah.
this wasn't going to ever be devalued, but I guess give them credit for that. And another good thing, and maybe we can start by talking about this, award flights are going to earn, qualifying miles for elite status, which is incredible.
Yeah, it's something Delta did a couple years back, which I was a big fan of. And I was kind of surprised. Usually, like Delta does something, then everybody else picks it up and takes it on. But usually it's towards the negative. Like they institute this and then everybody else like, oh, okay, well, we'll do that too, add to our profit and everything. So they did this a positive during COVID, I believe, and nobody else really picked it up or went with it. So it's cool to see this way. I don't fly Alaska rarely ever, so it won't be helpful to me. But anybody that lives on the West Coast, I think this was definitely a plus for it.
And Alaska is a member of One World, and they're a partner with American Airlines. So I can see people maybe figuring out the play. And I haven't done a lot of thinking about this, but whether they should pursue Alaska status versus American status, all stuff like that. Another option, you can start shopping your way now to elite status. They kept the tiers the same, the qualifying the same. So, anywhere from 20,000 to 100,000. So, I mean, one, if you're in Alaska elite right now, expect there to be a whole lot more next year because a lot of people are going to be doing this. And it'll be interesting to see how it does. But there's a ton of changes here. Was there anything else that kind of stood out to you?
Not totally. I think this is, piggybacking on American. They switched to loyalty points. And I mean, we're a niche group of people, but just the amount of people that have spent on their credit cards because of this or gone to their shopping portals just to earn status is kind of astronomical when you look at what it was like before. So I'm sure they got wind of the numbers and we're like, hey, that's working for them. Let's lean into that a bit. But I think as a whole, I had Delta status for 3-4 years, platinum, and I'm silver now, low end, crappy status. And then American through matches and other things had platinum or gold for several years. And I feel like it's so overblown, the value of it. Unless you're the top tier, you really don't get much. Maybe main cabin extra, that type of thing, a little bit extra leg room. You don't have to pay the $20 for preferred seats. Those aren't really great perks in my opinion. And there's nothing guaranteed where hotel status, you're guaranteed certain things. Yes, upgrades are not guaranteed, but you're guaranteed breakfast. You're guaranteed, property credits. You're guaranteed free parking, things like that it makes it worthwhile. Like, what you can put a value on it. You can't put a value on airline status. I think it's a big scam.
I can't disagree with you there as somebody who's at times pursued status where it didn't make a whole lot of sense. Although I haven't done it too much. I've mostly taken advantage of matches. That's why I talk about my Frontier status all the time because it was, I paid a small fee for it. There was no work that went into getting it. other than just paying a small fee and matching. And I think that that's the best strategy here, but it just depends on where you are and what you're going for. We talked when American Airlines instituted the loyalty points that this was a brilliant strategy to get people spending on the cards, the portals, doing all sorts of stuff. And there were some easier ways to earn loyalty points and harder ways. And over the years, they've sort of gotten rid of some of the easier ways. So they've tweaked it a bit. But yeah, this sort of getting you in their ecosystem, spending to get these perks that you may or may not get, or that may or may not be valuable. How valuable is something really to you, like a better seat or stuff like that? Could you live with just going on the flight with that bad seat and save all the time and effort you would put in to earning this status? I think that's something to be looked at. But again, this is not a surprise because everybody else has sort of done this spending towards status. And, spending $3 on the credit card to get one EQM, I mean, that opens up a lot of opportunities for people, especially with the value of Alaska miles. I feel like a lot of people would be willing to spend similar to American. I guess another big sort of thing they announced, which is actually huge, even though it seems small, is that very soon, and not yet, you'll be able to do multi-carrier itineraries for awards. So, right now you can't really mix carriers, which is a big pain in the butt, especially if you're trying to get connecting flights and stuff like that. So that is going to be fixed as well. They have a tremendous partner group, and, this is a benefit in that way as well.
Yeah, I think that would be nice. Sometimes you just have to book from a city and then book your own positioning flight because it wasn't really possible. And other times you can get it to come up with multi-city, but most of the time it's a struggle. And their system isn't the greatest. It's not the worst, but their online search and everything is a pain point at times for me. So I'm all for improvement there. And, sometimes some of their partners, you could find awards, like business awards, like Iceland Air has a flight from Detroit. I'm like, okay, I can use my Alaska miles to go back to Iceland again. I really want to do that. Only spend a day. When I first started searching, found business all the time. And then like all of a sudden, nothing, like not for a whole year. It's just gone. So I do think like things come and go with the program quite a bit. That's unexpected too.
For those of us who, transferred over miles to Hawaiian during that Amex bonus and then got that, I now have a decent stash of Alaska miles. This is also good news. Award travel now counting towards status if I wanted to do that, but I probably will be using them for some of their partners. And I guess the other sort of trend we're noticing, and we talked on 20-minute travel about AA and Hyatt and their new partnership agreement that does away with bonus points, but also adds all these milestone rewards, basically adding perks on the other company to their milestone rewards charts. And Mileage Plan is adding different perks along the way as well. And so this is completely an industry standard now, having these milestones. Let's go over them.
Would you say of all loyalty programs like airline and hotels, Hyatt was like the first one to do this, break out what you really want from the status levels so that you actually have to earn it versus matches and stuff like that? I would give them the credit for it. It's genius because it makes you spend towards it. Like even American, the loyalty point, who cares about the status levels? Yeah, free upgrades, but you want those, system-wide upgrade certificates and stuff, and that's based on loyalty points. So you go for that. And same with Hyatt. Like Globalist, yeah, you'll get some upgrades and breakfast, but like all the really great perks are based on elite nights, and it's kind of the way it is. And status doesn't mean as much as hitting those tiers do.
Yeah, Hyatt perfected the hamster wheel. And not only did they do that, but now with their current version, they've expanded that. And, basically every level along the way, you're getting something and you're constantly pursuing that. And as you mentioned on 20-minute travel, that opens them up for status matches and stuff because they decoupled a lot of the benefits from the status. A lot of it you actually earn by getting your nights. So I definitely think Hyatt deserves credit on that. On the Alaska front, this is how they describe it. At each milestone, members choose the reward that means the most to them. Perks that include bonus miles, lounge access, trying an elevated status for a trip, rollover EQMs, and access to exclusive events and unique experiences. Additional milestones happen at 30K, 55K, 85K, 150K, 200, and 250K. So very similar to what we've seen with other programs.
Yeah, it's like a copy of American, in my opinion.
And that's the partner. So I know that, and I haven't had a chance to read this, but I noticed that Katie Genter had an article talking about how she might be pursuing Alaska status instead of her American status. And I think there's a lot of people in this community that are going to be looking at all of that, the more hardcore people. I think your advice at the beginning is perfect for most people. Stay away from this stuff unless you really need it or it falls within your easy plans. Don't go out of your way to do it. And then there's a whole nother level of nerd or hardcore traveler or like Katie, who basically lives on the road. And so there is a reason for her to figure all of that out. I'll try to find that article, put a link. I haven't read it, but I know that there'll be a lot of thoughts going into that because they're very experienced with both of these programs.
Yeah, I think it's a good thought exercise. And that's whenever you have partnerships and stuff like that, you definitely should look at, hey, is it better to get, one world status versus the actual airlines, things like that. And the same with, does Alaska give me equal or more on American while being easier to earn and all those things? I think it's definitely something you should consider. But so many people out there, like want to be Hyatt globalists, let's say, and they stay at Hyatt like eight nights a year. Oh, I can spend to it. Well, why? Like, how much are you giving up to earn that status that you could just buy the dang breakfast or go to a restaurant and have like equally or better breakfast for a fraction of the cost? It's crazy. It blows my mind. Same with American, new hotness. Everybody jumped on it. And what are you getting? How often do you fly American? Do you fly them more than 5 times a year? What do you care? Like, just use the miles or the cash back that you would have earned to buy the seat you want anyway. It's yeah, it's kind of a sickness in our little niche industry, but it does happen.
Hey, we all have some sickness or the other, so nobody's perfect. We all do things that don't make a ton of sense. I was just thinking when you're talking about Hyatt Globalist, I was just thinking back to when they announced the World of Hyatt and the name of their elite tiers and Globalist and how that stood out to all of us, and to a lesser extent, Discoverist and Explorist and stuff like that. And now over time, we've just all sort of settled on that, that we're globalists, right? So we walk around and say, I'm a Hyatt globalist, I'm a Hyatt. And it's so funny because every time I hear that word said in front of somebody who's not in our ecosystem or isn't a Hyatt nerd or anything, they're like, what the hell does that mean? A globalist? It's such a weird
we're
name.
in the Bill Gates cult.
Yeah. We're the Illuminati here.
Yeah.
The Hyatt Illuminati. Traveling the globe.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we sound weird when we say anything when we talk about this stuff, and the eyes gloss over and everything. But yeah, we kind of forget that we're not normal when we talk to the normies, and we say stupid stuff that we think that everybody will pick up on, and even some like within the group, we use slang and stuff that newer people have no clue what we're talking about, and you just kind of expect them to pick up the shorthand. So it's kind of funny when you step back a bit and see all these things we do. But I think that's kind of the way it is in any type of hobby or niche area.
Speaking of niche, I put this in the rundown to talk about purely because I'm nerdy and excited. And this is the most niche, nerdy thing. And you're going to laugh at me and you're going to think this is so stupid. But Southwest just got approval to fly from Las Vegas into Reagan Airport in Washington, D.C. As a West Coaster, I can never fly into DCA. The fly in there is incredible because you see all the White House, all the buildings, and it's really an incredible thing. And I haven't had a chance to fly in there very often because unless I'm coming from another East Coast city, and they just got approval for that. I'm so excited. I can't wait to go fly directly. I have to fly Southwest though. That's the problem, but
Yeah, well, now you'll get to pick your seat pretty soon. It'll just be way more expensive. But no, I love DCA. DCA is probably one of my top, 3 or 4 airports in the U.S. I love flying in there. How close it is to DC and getting in and out is very easy. But just like the hallways, the history of it, it's a beautiful airport. Flying into it, like you said, it is amazing. So I'd be excited for that too. I already get it though. So
yeah, Dulles is so bad too by comparison. So
Yeah.
even Baltimore. I guess I don't really consider. If I was going to DC, I don't know that I would fly into Baltimore. But with Southwest, that's probably our best option from Vegas if we were flying with them. So yeah, DCA great. It's such a great airport. Like you said, the views flying in, but just getting from the gate to the curb is so quick. The architecture there is so classic. What a great airport. But I found a little bit of nerdiness in that. And just like I did the cruise ship, I guess we can talk about that. But before we do, Mark, I wanted a little bit of housekeeping behind the show from our first thing, because there's a lot of confusion here, I think, with our shows and what we're doing. And I get that, and I don't disagree with that. It's just sort of how things have evolved to where we are. But this show has existed for 5 or 6 years as the MTM podcast. And at the same time we decided to launch it as a video show, we changed the name to MTM Travel. So we also have the 20-minute travel news show. And what we decided was that they should belong on the same channel because it didn't make sense to send people separate places. But here we are with 2 shows, one a long form podcast, one a shorter news show with different names on the same channel. I get it that it's confusing, but this is just the same podcast you know and love, video version, and then you can get it all in one place. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's just streamlining it and, just updating MTM Travel, MTM Vegas, 20-minute travel. It's all kind of in the same realm. It just matches up a bit better. And I know we switched days too. Thursday, we're going to Monday. So, but now you get two shows in the pot. If you listen, you get two shows in the feed versus the one. You don't have to flip around or be linked to different things in your podcast app. So I think it just makes it easier. And the same thing on YouTube. Both the shows are in the same YouTube channel. And then MTM Vegas, because it's even more niche than any of this, it has its own domain, podcast setup, YouTube setup. So I think it makes sense to just, these are two different shows, and we wanted to splice out more of the newsy stuff. I know when I was on the show years ago, it was like we always had like a newsy section, and then we talked about our travels in a section, then maybe like picked one topic to talk in more depth. So we just broke that all out into two shows, so you get more detailed, on everything. I think it just gives you more information overall between the two shows now.
Yeah, and I like that format of the quick hits. You're going to get every story in 2 to 3 minutes. Some of this stuff can be dry. It can be a little boring, and we're trying to find ways to convey it. But if you want to get that quick news hit, that's why 20-minute travel there. And this is more for us to discuss not only our travels, the strategies, what we're doing, but also dive into topics that require a few more minutes. Exactly. Mark pissed everybody off with his dead animal talk to start the last show. So, hey, you didn't double down, though. I'm shocked.
Yeah, no, I do have an update on the phone story. Are we diving into it? Should we dive into it now, or do you want to do the cruise first?
Go for it.
Okay, so I know we talked about, before this was all announced, when I was just kind of like jumping in for an episode, we were talking about kids and traveling and freedoms and phones and, are we helicopter parents? Are we not? How to do all that type of stuff. And I had said my son's birthday's coming up. We're going to get him a phone. So we finally, I went with Mint Mobile because it's cheap. It's, the 15 gigabyte plan is, $20 a month or something like that. But if you do it for a year, it's even less. So I think it dropped down to like $15, something in that realm. So I paid for the year up front, and then I let him pick his phone. And the deal was, hey, for your present, we're going to pay for the service, and you have to pick your phone. And there's a couple $100 phones or whatever. And I said, you should just go with the cheap phone, $150 phone. They all work the same. Some have better cameras, yes, but you're 13. You don't need a nice phone. Of course, no. I want the Pixel 8 or whatever. It has the best camera and the best video and stuff. And he wants to do like YouTube stuff and all that at some point. And he likes making videos and creative and all those things. So I get it. And he usually has a stash of money, but he spent some this summer. So I'm like, all right, but you have enough money? Yeah. I order it. I go in his room. I'm like, all right, well, where's the $520 or whatever it was with taxes and fees? And he's like, oh, I'm a bit short.
Oh, he conned you. I love it.
Yeah. So I go in and he's like, I'm like $200 short if you include those gift cards. He had like an Amazon gift card, a Meijer gift card, a Visa gift card. I'm like, and then like a stack of ones. I'm like, I'm not taking 51. So like, I'm not messing with that. So you need to figure that out. He got his sister to give him a $50 bill for the ones. And then I'm like, you're lucky. Like I can somewhat easily use these. Like Amazon's easy to load up. We were actually going shopping at Meijer that day for groceries. So I was like, I'll take the gift cards. Normally, if it was like Best Buy, I would have been like, no, I'm not taking that. So I looked at him. I said, this is a great learning lesson. Like now you're in debt and you owe me money. So that means you have to do what I say and you work your debt off. And then I said, every month that you have a balance, you owe me $10. Like you're going to pay me interest for this because you messed up. You didn't count your money before. You guaranteed that you had it and you bought something you couldn't afford. And so he starts at like, hey, can we set up an allowance now and stuff? And he wrote this letter and it was so cute, but also like, he's like, hey, as you know, times are hard and now I'm in debt. And I said, I'm going to stop you right there. But you're in debt out of your own decision. Anybody that's in debt for the most part, in bad debt, not like owning a house or car or whatever and having a loan, but anybody that's in bad debt for the most part, unless they just hit hard times, made bad decisions to get there. Hey, we've all done it. We've all been there. But you made a decision. You had enough to buy a pretty good phone but you thought you had enough to buy a really good phone. And if you would have got the pretty good phone, you wouldn't have this problem. So putting it like, you can't go to an employer and say, well, I have a lot of bills, so you should hire me. Like, that ain't going to work. So I don't care about that. I
Hey,
said, you'll, yeah.
this is your fault because you're the influencer. You're on YouTube. He wants to be like dad. He needs
Oh
the
no,
right
he wants to
phone.
be like Ryan, whoever the guy is that he watches that travels and stuff. But no, they were big into YouTube. That's what's crazy. Like, I don't understand like they were watching people open toys and stuff when they were like 5 and thought it was the greatest thing ever. So they were on YouTube before we even started doing YouTube stuff. But yeah, that's what everybody wants to be now, is an influencer and a YouTube person and all this stuff. And it looks glamorous. I get it. Like, especially when these people are traveling all the places or doing cool things, getting behind the scenes, but it's still a lot of work, editing, all that stuff. It's long hours and everything. So they definitely earn whatever they get. But yeah, it was just funny that I'm like, well, we're going to turn this into several learning lessons here.
I love how he said times are tough.
Yeah.
As you've seen on
He's
TV, the
like,
economy is
but
bad.
he even put inflation is up there, you know?
He's so cute. I love Connor. He's such a good kid. So I mean, yeah, I wonder if he conned you. I wonder if he really knew, like in the back of his head, he didn't have enough money, but he's like,
No.
I gotta get this. No,
No, I can say he's never like lied directly, on purpose lied. And it just that, like, he's stressed about it now. And I knew he would be as soon as he said I don't have enough. Like, this is all he thinks about now is like, hey, do you need me to do that? How much would it be worth? How much could I get off my like, I'm like, well, you can go. He passed up cutting the grass most of the summer. I'm like, do you want to go cut the grass? I'll pay you for it. No, I have enough money. And I said, what'd you learn from that? Take the opportunity when it comes. Even if you think you don't need it, just take it if you can do it, because you never know when the next one's going to come around. If you would have been cutting grass all summer, you would have had another $100, $200 in there, and you thought you had money to spare. So yeah, I think this worked out great.
for everybody who's saying you're cruel for not forgiving his debt, you
Yeah,
have supported his endeavors all throughout the years, buying him new laptops and gaming laptops and all
yeah,
kinds of cool stuff. He's always been on this sort of path of what he's been looking to do. I can't wait to he gets this phone and maybe he'll be able to go out. He will be able to go out there and start doing some cool stuff. I can't wait to see it. He's got such an interesting eye for stuff and just a little bit different in the way he looks at everything. So I can't wait to see his vision of that, especially as much as he travels and stuff.
yeah. And he's been making like these little shorts and stuff, like comedy little videos. I think that's really what he wants to do, and they are cute, they're funny, and he wants his own YouTube. So we might set it up where there's no comments, because as we both know, the comments can be brutal at times, especially for a 13-year-old. So I might give him, maybe that's the next step, is we let him do that and start to build it, because a lot of these people started when they were young and did it for years and years without getting any views, but like, it gives them chance to edit and do all these other things and kind of hone their craft, if that's something he wants to be. I mean, he wants to be a civil engineer, so, which is another, that just goes to show what type of kid this is, that at 12 he wants to like design roads and crap and all that type of thing. So he definitely is a little bit more unique than most kids his age.
It's so funny as we, talk about influencer, YouTube, all of this stuff, how social media has made everybody an influencer. And so on some level, everybody, I just think about like 20 years ago when I took my first video editing course in college. Uh, I wasn't ever going to be a video editor. I was actually studying computer animation at the time, but it was a basic video editing course. And that was something very, doing editing on a computer on an iMac at the time was very cutting edge, having digital video and all of that sort of stuff. And it was, a niche thing. Most people didn't know how to edit video. And now if you went and talked to the average person on the street, they're editing TikTok videos. They're doing at least minor edits and tweaks, and they understand how to put frames together. And I feel like just everybody is a creator in their own way. And I think, there's a huge downside to that is we're curating our lives and, all the
Yeah.
nonsense of social media that comes with that. But from the skill set of traveling and sharing, and I think there's a lot of people who watch us or are in the community that do this on some level. They want to share, or they are the travel person in their group, the person that travels the most. And so they're finding ways to share that experience with their friends and, finding those quality things. So I think we're all kind of going out there. These iPhones or these Pixels, or the quality of the cameras is so good that we're carrying a very good quality camera in our pocket. We're able to do that. And it's kind of interesting how that's turned into we're all content creators, whether it's the people that are just doing it once in a while or the people who are doing it for a living. There's different levels of it, but it's all good.
Yeah, I think everybody's on this path a little bit if you have a smartphone, and that's kind of what opened up to. And I remember back in college taking a class where you had to create your own like web page, and you had to do it on the back end where you wrote the code and stuff. And look how easy it is with WordPress now. I know like themes and stuff gets a little bit crazy, but to just like write a blog post and put it up is so much easier than what you used to have to do to get it out there. And the different codes and everything you had to write in to get an image on, and now you just pick an image and plop it in there. It's kind of crazy how much different it is than basically if you learned how to do all this stuff, 25 years ago, none of it is useful.
Well,
Now.
that actually happened to me. I used to code websites. I studied HTML. I studied in college, and I had a couple of professional jobs where I was coding websites as a side job. One of them was for this company. Another one was for the CSN, College of Southern Nevada here. They had like a workforce program, and they had a grant, and I just happened to know the person who ran it, and they gave me the contract for the website. And it was so cool because the contract had a initial amount up front, and then there was a monthly amount that they were paying me to maintain the site. But once I wrote the site, there was maybe like, 30 minutes and hours worth of work every month to maintain it or to update what the calendar or whatever they wanted on there. And so I did that, and I was, it was like $500 a month they were paying me for like 30 minutes worth of work, and it was just going to go on indefinitely. And then the grant got taken away, and all of my my slush fund got taken away with it. But you're right, this was in the day of just HTML, once CSS, and a lot of the the database programming, and it got a lot more complicated. I switched to WordPress, and I didn't keep my skills up, so I don't really have those levels of skills. But man, I'd go into Notepad and I could code away a web page.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I mean, that's similar to our buddy Eric, who owns a business with family members that like a dog sitting business and stuff. And he built the whole website basically from scratch. And that took a long time for him to get up and running and critique it and figure out all the bugs and glitches and everything. But then once he does, he's like, like 3, 4 hours a week, I go in there and make sure I update everything. And that's it. And then it kind of runs itself. So it's kind of like once you build something that is doing the work, all the effort is up front, but then you get to enjoy the spoils of it at the end.
So let's pivot to that cruise ship then,
Okay.
because I do want to talk about this. I think this is absolutely worth talking about.
We
You
promise
know,
people no more cruise ships.
no, and no more Disney. No, this is okay. When one of the largest cruise ships in the world is
Yeah.
announced, and
I think it's
has
cool
the
because of the
largest,
Genting. Yeah.
yeah.
The
So I
Genting
mean, it
stuff.
does have the tie-in. So Genting, the company that owns Resorts World in all over the U.S., all over the world, they're based out of Malaysia. They also own this cruise line out of Genting, Hong Kong. And anyway, it went bankrupt. They were building this cruise ship called World Dream, which was one of the largest cruise ships in the world, a little bit smaller than Royal Caribbean's Icon class, but huge cruise ship. And it was going to have the most dense passenger sort of setup ever. And it was designed for the Chinese market. So it was going to have like, I think, 8,000 people on board,
Oh,
small cabins,
gross.
crazy stuff. And I don't quite know, and Disney in this announcement they haven't talked a ton about how they've altered this ship. So this was the first time we got some renderings and stuff like that. I don't expect the density to be what it was with the World Dream, but some of the stuff that they did, they're going to be like 7 themed areas. So you're going to have like a Marvel themed area, including the coaster. What's a little bit of a cheat with the coaster is that it was designed for the World Dream. The coaster, if you look at the rendering of the World Dream, had the same exact coaster. So Disney just decided to keep it, but it is the longest one at sea. It's just slightly longer than the one on Carnival ships. Same exact type of coaster. I saw somebody on Twitter yesterday when they announced this and they showed the roller coaster. He's like, the Carnival one is so much better. The Carnival one's just a few feet shorter, same exact layout, same designer. Yeah, people just want to hate for no reason, but this looks incredible. I'll show the renderings on screen. Not much else to say. It's Disney. It's sailing out of Singapore though, starting late next year. This will be my first Disney cruise. Will be on this ship.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that you still hadn't been on a Disney cruise, which a lot of people say, even people that aren't big Disney people say Disney cruise is the best experience, food, all that stuff. Maybe not so much with Virgin. Maybe Virgin takes that spot now for some. All along, you've heard that they just the experience and the service are really great on Disney. I don't know that I could deal with the characters every day, all day, and all of that stuff and the music and having Disney on every channel on the TV type of thing, Disney movies. But there's a time and a place for things, so I could see why people are excited for it. I think if I do a cruise at some point or finally get on one, it will be a Virgin Voyages cruise. Everything we've heard is great and adults only, kind of unique. I just wish that they were always bookable via points or miles, and they come out like once a year it seems like, and do it, and then it's always like tight windows. You can't really plan for it, which makes it a little bit tough. So maybe when the kids are a little bit older and we can get away easier without them, we'll pull the trigger on that.
Yeah, I see Virgin and Disney sort of as polar opposites. I agree with you. I loved our Virgin cruise a lot last year. Would have loved to do it again this year. It's just difficult with the kid, but hoping next year they'll bring the points redemptions back. We can make that work because I do like that. And I enjoy the novelty of being adults traveling without the kids, which is not something we get to do very often. And especially for that type of vacation where you're in different cities. So you're spending time with your spouse or significant other, walking around. Like in our case, we went to San Juan, went to Bimini, and just having those days together without the kid, without all that, just that adult time is something that we haven't had in a long time. So I love that. And then, with cruises, what I'm looking for these days is more unique ships or itineraries. Going out of Singapore, this is a unique Disney ship. It'll never be another one of this because they bought it out of bankruptcy. So the design and everything is going to be unique. So all of that working together, I think it'll have unique ports and stuff like that. So I feel like instead of going out of plus Disney cruises are so expensive. I mean, I'm going to be truthful with you. I haven't gone on one, but I don't see the value in that. There's I like Royal Caribbean a lot, and they have incredible ships, and I could get, a lot of the experience for less. And then I could go to all the Disney parks overseas. I'm going to Alani. I'm still getting a lot of Disney, and I could get my cruise stuff elsewhere. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this. And the renderings are great. It looks great. And they're going to have Main Street USA themed on the ship. So
Gross.
For like the Disney, stop, for the Disney nerds, this is big. Mr. I hate everything. Somebody said in the comments on one of our shows recently, brought back the old trope. Does Mark like anything?
Oh, geez. Yeah. Which is crazy because especially on like the Vegas, I could be like, I like that. I like that. I like that. I don't like that. I like that. I don't like that. I like that. And they'll be like, why does he hate everything? I'm like, oh, okay.
Now, on the flip side, I can say, the opposite. I can say, I don't like this. I don't like this. I don't like this. I like this. I don't like this. I don't like this. And I don't get the same thing. It's so funny. It's something about you.
Most of the time, I don't like something. You end up agreeing with it. And yet it's me. I don't know. Whatever. A lot of times, I think they don't pick up on the sarcasm. Sometimes I'm like, I say it just as like a joke, not even being serious. Like I don't care one way or the other type of thing. And I just kind of like, I like to poke fun at things or find like something to point out that I find humorous. And I know that you get that. Maybe I think a lot of the people that have watched for a while get it, but maybe somebody coming in for a bit here or there doesn't fully get it. So it seems more negative than it is. I don't know. I love the people that are like, oh, you sound like a real fun time. Like,
well, you like to give me crap too about things I like. And so I play into that a lot. And so I'll apply it into what I like a lot more, just so to kind of set you up for it. That's a little bit of the trick of all of it. I mean, not that I don't like this stuff, but I know you're coming at me and it's not going to hurt me in a way. And it's a game that we're playing here a little bit. But he doesn't like Disney. He really doesn't. He does go. I will say, I was thinking about this since you started working with me, many years ago. I feel like I've nudged you in certain directions, and the Cedar Point trip you did a few weeks ago is a good example. I'm going to take credit for that.
I mean, I went to Cedar Point a lot as a kid.
Stop.
And my sister has the season pass and everything, so she encouraged me more than anybody, just because I knew it would be free for her, so something cool to do as a family together. But yeah, I used to go to Disney partly because I had a friend from high school that worked on the weekends, worked at one of the resorts as a server, so she got free passes like all the time. And our deal was I would book her flights home using Delta Sky Miles back when you could get a flight round trip from Orlando for like 20,000 Sky Miles, and she would meet us there and get all four of us in for free. So at that point, I don't care. Like if we go for 3 hours, 4 hours, or whatever, I don't feel bad because 20,000 Sky Miles with that, a couple $100 worth of points didn't cost me a ton and didn't cost her anything. So it was just kind of like a cool, convenient thing to do with the kids. And we always went to Magic Kingdom, which gets worn out after a while. The last one we went to, Hollywood Studios just to see the Star Wars stuff, which was cool, but it was so small, such a small area that you're like, after, 3-4 hours, you're like, okay, what do we do now? The rest of the park isn't great. The weather wasn't great, so we just left. We spent a whole bunch of money and didn't do a whole lot. Rode the rides a couple times, went into the cantina, which was really unique and cool, but felt rushed and not, the full Disney experience. It felt like they were trying to get you out as quickly as possible. So it just, I don't know. Yeah, Universal's better. Let's just say that.
Mark loves to go for a few hours, spend money, and then leave.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're willing to do that. A lot of people wouldn't do that. And this isn't a theme park show. We're not going to devolve into Disney. I think the ship was great. And I think the point is that we like different things, and that's good because we can make fun of the other thing, and we try different things, and we know what we like and don't like. And yeah, so Mark, start liking things that I like. Stop making fun of me. Be nice to Sean.
I'm just going to go a month of saying everything in Vegas is great and see if anybody says anything.
Just everybody, just compliment him when he, oh my God, seeing the world through rose-colored glasses. That would be amazing for you.
I know that would be the thing, though. As soon as I do it, all you guys do is say everything's great. You're just like you're just here propping up Vegas. Who's paying you? That's what it would be.
Hence the age-old problem that we face, yet we do it here every week, twice a week, and over on Vegas twice a week as well. And for everybody watching, we hope you subscribe to the channel, leave a comment so we can discuss everything like this. If you're listening on the podcast feed, consider joining us over here on YouTube to watch the show. Watch me and Mark talk with all the visuals, youtube.com/@20minute travel. And everything else in the podcast feed, just as normal. Just search MTM Travel. You can find all of our shows there, and then Vegas on YouTube. So hopefully it all makes sense what we talked about earlier. I think as we do the shows, people will understand that they all work together and they all serve a purpose and they're all complementary to each other. And we hope you'll go on this journey as we continue this video endeavor for the MTM Travel podcast. In the meantime, Mark, where can people find you when they're not listening or watching?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Detroit Mark. You can find all my articles on travelonpoints.com, the Travel on Points Facebook group. If you have any questions, you can join us there. How about you, Sean?
At Miles to Memories all over social media, YouTube for 20-minute travel, MTM Travel, and MTM Vegas, milestomemories.com for everything else. Thanks so much for watching, listening. Our second video show is in the can.
Yes, no dead animals. Good stuff.